What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G. So without further ado, let's get started. Now this device is one of two recently launched Revvl phones from T-Mobile. There's both this phone, the Pro, and then also the regular model. Now in an upcoming video, I will be comparing those two devices, but for the most part, this phone essentially adds quite a few features compared to the cheaper version of it. Now this phone does feature an MSRP of $219, and it is being offered to both T-Mobile and Metro by T-Mobile, and I know at least right now at Metro, they are offering this phone for just $39.99. So I'm sure as time goes on, there will be various promotions like that, and they probably will change as well. So definitely take a look at the various links in the video description to see the most up-to-date pricing for this device. Now before I show you a variety of different things about the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G, let's see what all is included here in the box. So there's the box that the phone comes in. You can see right there the T-Mobile logo and Revvl. On the back, we just have some regulatory information. And then in the box, we have some literature here. We also have a USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. And we also have a SIM card removal tool. But unfortunately, there is no USB wall adapter in the box. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 6.82-inch display. Now the display itself is LCD. It is 720p. We have a PPI of 263 and a 20.5:9 aspect ratio. So a more narrow but taller form factor here with the phone, which really makes this phone ideal for going on social media, for example, because with a taller display like we're getting here, you technically don't have to scroll quite as much in your social media feed to see the same amount of content compared to a phone that might be a little bit shorter. And in addition to that, with such a large canvas that we're getting here with the phone, it does make it very ideal for watching video content, as it does make things very immersive. Now for a lower end device like this one, the display is pretty bright and vibrant, which is good. However, compared to a $1,000 smartphone, for example, there really is no comparison. Especially for viewing angles, I wouldn't say that they're necessarily that great here with the device. But again, if you just want a simple, lower end, affordable phone, then I think things are totally fine here. Now with this phone, we do have a water drop notch for the front-facing camera, and then we also have a thicker bottom bezel here. But overall, the design of the phone is pretty practical. Now the front-facing camera is 16 megapixels, and stay tuned for my full review video of the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G to see a variety of different photo and video samples from all the various cameras on this device. Now internally here with the phone, we're getting 128 gigabytes of storage along with microSD card expansion. So having that much storage is definitely very impressive, and considering that the MSRP of this phone is relatively cheap, that's for sure, compared to other phones that offer that much internal storage, they're really giving us a lot of value here, which I really appreciate. Now another thing that's especially impressive is that with this device, we do actually have wireless charging, and this might be one of the most affordable phones that I've used in a long time that actually has that feature. So you have the option, of course, to charge via the USB-C port, but if you do want to just put this phone on a Qi-compatible wireless charging pad, then you can certainly do that and charge the phone in that way. So there's really two benefits to that. The first benefit of wireless charging is the convenience, but also if for some reason your USB-C port were to be damaged, then at least you still can charge the phone with wireless charging. So overall, there's really no downsides to having that feature. So that's really impressive. Having as much storage as we have here at 128 gigs is very impressive as well. And things get even better as we do have a fingerprint sensor mounted on the side of the phone. So let's give that a try right now. And as you can see, very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. It's very quick there. And in addition to that, we also have Face Unlock with this device. So I do appreciate that we have multiple methods here for accessing the phone. Now taking a look at the back of the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G, we have a quad camera setup. So there's a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. Now here's how things look on the camera app on the device. This is with the main camera right now. Then from here, we can switch over to the ultra wide angle camera to fit a lot more content into the frame. So certainly a nice feature to have. Then we can go over to the More tab to access the macro camera, and you can get very close up here and have things be in really good detail. And then in addition to that, we can go to live focus to get portrait mode, except there's one thing that's really frustrating about portrait mode on this phone, and that is that portrait mode only supports the rear camera. So we can take selfies, of course, with the front-facing camera, and I'll do that right now. There we go, there's me right there. And the camera itself does look really clear, but when you go over to live focus it switches things over to the rear-facing camera. So there is no portrait mode with the front-facing camera on this phone, which is really disappointing. I don't think I've seen a phone at this price tag that doesn't have portrait mode for the front-facing camera. So I don't know why they made this choice. You can see here that the front-facing camera definitely is very clear. So I can't really see why they didn't include that feature. So hopefully they can add that in a software update, but I'd imagine for many people, including myself, not having front-facing portrait mode is a bit of a deal breaker. It's also one of those features that you pretty much expect to find on every device. So I don't think there's gonna be too many people that are specifically checking to see if the phone has front-facing portrait mode. And unfortunately, they're gonna be surprised that they don't have that feature once they actually end up getting the phone itself. Now, on a more positive note, with this device, we do have 6 gigabytes of RAM, and it is paired up with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. Now, that's a good amount of RAM, and the Dimensity 700 is a good mid-range, kind of lower mid-range end processor, so definitely expect to get pretty good performance as far as being able to go on social media, send text messages, do phone calls, watch video content, do some light gaming as well. It'll definitely work for all those various things. Now, I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 5, and I'll show you the scores from that test right now, but essentially, I got a single core score of 539 and a multi-core score of 1599. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G compares to what you currently have. Because who knows, this phone could be slower than the current phone that you have. Now, video recording with this device maxes out at 1080p with the front and rear cameras, which is good. I do wish it did have 4K video recording though, so keep that in mind. If your current phone does have 4K video recording and you like using that feature, you won't have that here, unfortunately, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G. Now, this device does feature a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, so definitely expect to get a full day of battery life out of the phone, if not a day and a half. Now, as far as the software goes, we are getting Android 12 on this device. Now, I'm not aware of any promises for future updates and newer versions of Android. I certainly hope we do get them, but if you happen to know if T-Mobile is committed to providing this phone with major Android software updates, certainly leave that in the comments section, and I certainly hope that it does actually end up getting newer versions of Android, as I know these lower devices sometimes tend to not get them. Now, thankfully, with this phone, we do get NFC, so if you do like to make mobile contactless payments using Tap and Pay, you can do that here with the Revvl 6 Pro 5G, so just keep that in mind. Now, as far as the hardware goes with this phone, I'm a pretty big fan of the design itself. I like that the phone has kind of a boxier look to it. I also like that we're getting a matte finish on the device, as it doesn't pick up nearly as many fingerprints compared to a phone with a glossy back. But since this phone is made completely out of plastic besides the display, which is glass, I would recommend pairing this phone up with some sort of case, just so that it doesn't get too scratched up as time goes on. Now, taking a look at the left side of the device, we have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. Then on the right side, we have volume up, volume down, and also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. You can see that it is in magenta, which matches the T-Mobile branding, which is pretty cool. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the device, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and we have the speaker. And then on the back of the device, I already talked about the material that we're getting here, but we do have that quad camera setup, and we have the T-Mobile logo, and that's pretty much it. So overall, it's a relatively minimalist device, certainly nothing overly interesting about this phone, but there still are quite a few features that do stand out to me. As I mentioned earlier in the video, wireless charging is something that I definitely did not expect to find here with this phone, and then also getting 128 gigabytes of internal storage is an excellent thing too, that really adds a lot of value here. But most importantly, I'm really curious to know what you think of the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G. Do you think this phone is worth getting? Or do you think that the regular Revvl 6 5G, the non-Pro model, is a better deal? Certainly curious to know, and if you happen to own this phone already, certainly share with us your experience with it. But this is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G, and I will catch you in the next video.